Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House with Jennifer and Sandy, your lovely hostesses for the evening of Earth Day. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Sandy. Hello, everybody. Happy Earth Day to you all. We're going to go through it a little bit, and we've got some articles lined up for you to, I wouldn't say celebrate Earth Day, but
No.
at least acknowledge it and take a look at it. So, our first one is from resilience.org, Unite to Win, a groundbreaking coalition of groups to join the big one. And this is a really good article by Extinction Rebellion, and it just came out today. Then we're going to run over to The Verge, Earth Day 2023, green or greenwashed. You decide. So that's a good analysis of what's going on. Then we're going to run over to Euro News. We are moving in the wrong direction. New UN report highlights the scale of global climate change. And then we're going to run over to the New York Times for a little deep dive. It's not just Willow. Oil and gas projects are back in a big way. So this one actually is pretty stunning. It's a little bit WASF
A little bit.
and just a
A
little
little bit.
bit,
A little bit.
little bit, little bit. And then we're going to run over to resilience, and this is an article that came out a couple days ago. Another offering from our tech overlords, a climate change solution without sacrifice. And that is that.
And
That's
we
what we've
have
got
a
lined up.
video. We have a movie.
Ah, yes, you have a
Yeah.
movie right after our first article.
Yes.
We have a
We
movie.
have a movie. All
And
right. To go over here, and we're gonna start. Jen, did we decide who was gonna do this one? I guess I was
I
gonna do.
think you were going to do
Okay.
this one.
All right, let me start. I didn't say hi. Hi, Raza. Hi, Kim. Thank you for moderating. I'll do that real quick. Gary Ballard, Gary, Melnichuk, Steve Angelical, Lightning Rod, Scott Andrews, hi, Gazer, and hi, Trulia, and hi, Going South, and Honey Bunny, and Hans. Mwah! And
Hello,
Jim
everybody.
McHenry, who is,
Oh,
you'll see, and Artificial Morphous Man, and oh my God, we have a full house. So Nadia, hello, Book Hermit, great. All right, so let's get going on the first one. I will read the first one. This
okay.
is the uh, Extinction Rebellion. On the day that the IPCC issued its survival guide for humanity, Extinction Rebellion revealed the first tranche of organizations that have committed to joining us outside Parliament in April. The groups include trade unions as well as national organizations campaigning on the environment, international development, peace, social justice, the defense of our public services. The monumental occasion is expected to draw an estimated 100,000, and it aims to unite people across the UK in demanding systemic changes to politics to tackle the intertwined crisis of climate, cost of living, and politics. The full list of organizations, and I'm not going to go through them, but here they are. There's a whole lot of people, whole lot of people. At this turbulent moment in UK political history, people are joining the dots between the many crises we face, and they're recognizing the need to come together to win.
Mm.
So we have John Maloney, the Assistant General Secretary of the PCS Union, said the PCSU members understand the need to coordinate across our movements to win our demands for better pay and to safeguard jobs. The climate and nature emergency requires the same to win the future we desperately need in face of multiple crises. Mel Evans of Greenpeace said, quote, "We believe that we will win as a movement. The more people that come, the louder message our it will be." unquote. Zoe Howard from Don't Pay UK said, quote, the energy and climate crisis are inextricably linked. The extortionate energy prices we pay line the pockets of fossil fuel company shareholders and fund the breakdown of our climate.
Mm-hmm.
I will
Mm-hmm.
definitely say that was that one was a good one. That one gets an applause. Yay! Because it's happening here in the
Yay.
United States too. So yeah. And the NHS say no, no. Co-founder Holly Blackler said, "We have experienced a pandemic and a heat wave that has taken us to the limit of our endurance. These two issues are intertwined. The climate crisis is unfolding in front of us, and we are deeply concerned about our patients. So, with public trust in government at an all time low and corruption in plain sight, democracy in the UK is under threat. The climate crisis and the crisis in society share the same root cause, with the majority of people being forced to pay for crisis not of our making, while a tiny little majority make vast profits. In April, thousands will come together to demand that change happens with us. And it's happening right now, not to us. And there was a 6 hour live stream actually from XR. In the
Mm.
next few days, you'll be able to see all of that if you want to. Uh, so they want to create a positive social tipping point because history clearly demonstrates that mass sustained protest works. The big one will last for 4 days, which started today. The
Mm.
21st to the 24th of April, including Earth Day on the 22nd, which is tomorrow, with people returning day after day to keep up the pressure. We will transform the streets with a diverse program of speakers, performers, and interactive workshops. People's pickets will be staged at least 7 key government department locations addressing crucial issues in the environment, health, education, housing, and work. XR local groups have also been building connections with community groups and unions such as Norwich Trade Union Council and Unite Grassroots Climate Justice Caucus. Exeter Community Alliance, representing 30 community groups, said,
Mm.
we have been counting down the days until we all go to London together to draw attention to the fact that the government is failing in its duty in not tackling the climate and environmental crisis, opening coal mines and licensing new oil fields, having declared a climate emergency. It's incoherent. Incoherent. It's like a lot more than that. They have
Mm-hmm.
succumbed to pressure to give NHS workers a much deserved pay raise. They now need to realize that there is a need for similar support for serious efforts to ensure our children and future generations can enjoy a planet not ruined by a lack of political willpower and, in my words, a bunch of pussies. We're made to believe that our struggles are independent of one another and that each needs tackling before the other. But they aren't. Those who profit from destroying our world want us to believe that. But they aren't. And they win up sorry. And they win time and time again by dividing the rest of us, pushing us to fight each other. But what power is most afraid of is people setting aside their differences to stand together. We can overcome our fear and mistrust of each other and rediscover our power. This is survivor solidarity for us all. Because despite the corruption deep in the heart of our politics, ordinary people are ready to create a fairer, safer world, better world. If politicians refuse to listen to the needs of the general public, refuse to listen to millions striking for better pay, refuse to tackle climate and ecological crisis, refuse to prioritize people suffering during the cost of living crisis over energy company profits, then it's up to us to turn things around. It's possible to change society in a way that is just and fair, to put care for people and nature at the forefront. It is possible to rediscover our collective power and change the course of history together. To make this a reality, this moment calls for a mass movement to stand together and become impossible to ignore.
Mm,
That
so well said.
was good.
Yeah.
So, guys, now I hope more people would join, but David asked, what is WASF? We are so fucked.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's just a little, term. But anyway, we're going to show the movie now because it goes with this. So I want you guys to enjoy this. And here.
ABC News presents Earth Day, an SOS for survival. Here in New York is Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. On this Earth Day, millions of Americans in the communities which dot this map have taken the first step to survival. But if this day of teach-ins, mock funerals, rallies, marches, speeches, and songs does not convince enough of us that the threat to our life on Earth is clear and present, then we may have cast a vote for death. That's the symbolism in this ecology flag. The term ecology confirms again that the Greeks had a word for everything. The Greek word oikos means house. Ecology is the study of our earthly house, our environment. This ecology flag contains the Greek letter theta, once used as a vote for death in judging one man's fate. At stake now is every man's fate, whether his air will be pure, symbolized by the white stripes, whether his land will be unspoiled, symbolized by the green stripes. Everything that makes our living better also threatens our life. Jet planes that move us quickly assault our ears, help pollute our air, and when big enough, may affect our cloud cover and our climate. Ecology is a non-controversial issue. No one is against survival. Earth Day began as the idea of one United States senator. Now some Democrats and some Republicans are maneuvering to make the environment issue their party's private possession. The nation's capital is as polluted as any other big city. This time of year, when the cherry blossoms delicately frame the Potomac River, the frustrating irony of our lifestyle is clearly revealed. The trees are pink and beautiful. The river is brown and ugly, and it smells. The crisis may not be as dramatic as that of Apollo 13, and perhaps not as immediate, but the experts say it is no less real. A few weeks ago, I saw a boy of about 10 stand up in a public meeting and ask a speaker, "What's the solution to pollution?" The answer was, "You are." But of course it should have been, "We are." For all of us are polluters, and if we are the problem, we are also its solution. The cost will be high, but as the men of Apollo 13 will tell you, the Earth is worth it at any price.
It is April 20th, 2023, and this Saturday Tanya and I are going down to Washington, D.C. for the Earth Day, and it's a protest down there in Washington, D.C. Boston has one, and London has a huge one starting on Friday, the 21st, tomorrow, and goes until Monday, which they will probably have mass arrests on Monday. So I encourage you to check out the big one, which is Extinction Rebellion in London, every day on YouTube, and to see what's happening. And they really have great speakers, 1,000 times better than I am. So anyways, this is one of the flags I'm going to have. If you show up down at Washington, D.C., I will gladly give you some of our extra flags that I'm taking down there, have them for kids and things. But it is Earth Day, and do you see any borders here? No. You know, we're so consumed with this battle or that fight or this, that, and our country and that country. No, there's no, climate change does not stop at any borders, and we're all in the same boat. You know, some people, some countries, for example, are drilling into our lifeboat and cutting holes in it. The United States is a big example of that. China and other countries as well. And we're actually causing the lifeboat to sink.
Climate change is now out of control, and its disastrous outcomes are exponential and irreversible. A growing proportion of the world's population is already experiencing degraded lives. Societal chaos is approaching, and the demise of most wildlife species is well underway. The people in charge, elected government officials, are not prepared to deal with the nightmare scenario that is unfolding. They have no plans to ensure your future and that of the planet. If you're not old enough, follow Greta's lead, Scream for Life. Now is the time for a young person's revolution. Let your voices be heard. Continue your demonstrations. Speak to your parents and, where necessary, hold them accountable. Demand that when they vote for your future. It's easy to do and beyond reckless if they don't. Contact your politicians and hold them responsible for our current predicament. The power of change is in your hands.
The young people here used this symbol of death to dramatize the dangers to life. They placed a childlike plastic doll in an antique casket. They said it represented the death of generations yet unborn. With a horse-drawn hearse, the pollution protesters turned to the past to plead for the future. This small-town movement was led by local teenagers. John Glavis, 19. His father's occupation, pest control. And Bonnie Campbell, also 19. She was born here. She remembers when the air was fresh and the water clean.
We want the people to project themselves into the casket, you might say. We want them to feel that they're responsible for putting that child in that casket. People have asked me, do you think you can stop the pollution problem without violence? I think you may see a great militancy growing, especially during the next 10 years with the youth.
You plan on getting married when you get older and having kids, and you want them to be able to take hikes in the woods, like be nature loving. You want nature to still be around, wildflowers and brooks and streams and everything. And if pollution keeps going on, there won't be the clear brooks. There might be a few, but you'd have to go far away to see them, and you want them right here where you're at.
If we pollute a little bit, people say, well, we'll tolerate it because it's for progress. Then a little bit more pollution, and a little bit more, and they keep tolerating it until it gets to the point where it's no longer tolerable. Here in Ashtabula, I believe that it's getting very near that point. Around in this area, you don't have to go very far before you find choking smog, and you can see streams that flow like ribbons of death underneath highways where the industries have poured materials into the water. This is what shocks me, is the fact that when something can be seen like this, that people don't do anything about it. They say, well, that's too bad, something has to be done, and that's where it stops.
The IPCC, the United Nations IPCC, says we're at 1.2 degrees of heating, and that's absolutely not true because the level of catastrophe seems to be doubling. If you use the 1750 baseline, we're probably at about 64 times the level of catastrophes that we have now than what we had back then. And chances of surviving are pretty slim the way things are going. They came out with the 3 reasons why we're in big trouble, and you can check that out on the Union of Atomic Scientists Doomsday Clock. The United Nations IPCC said, and they're really conservative. They don't come out and say what's happening, as far as conjecture and everything. It has to be the lowest common denominator of agreement for anything, and they said we're going to go to a 3.2 degrees Celsius increase before 2100. That's probably a lie. It's probably, I would predict it's by 2050.
It's Earth Night now at the Washington Monument. The protest leaders say it won't stop here because the air, the sky, and the water will continue to get dirtier and dirtier.
The 3.2 degrees Celsius increase without factoring in permafrost melt, glacier melt, albedo effect, all these other things. Peat bogs drying up and catching fire. The Amazon rainforest at a tipping point. It's at 17% right now, less trees. And if they get up to 20, there's a thought that the whole thing will just collapse because no longer do you get the rain that comes every day. It becomes a savanna. In my estimate, it becomes a desert down there, the Amazon desert. So the idea of just suggesting a 3.2 as survival is absolutely insanity. There's no effort by locals to go that whole hour and a half down to Washington, D.C., either by subway, the metro, or drive down. Either way, it doesn't matter how you get there. Get there. I don't care about people going, you drove. Screw you. The fact is that we have to get down there, and sitting here and saying, I'm not doing it because it's going to pollute the air. No, this is an example where you actually have to do something and at cost to the environment to get things done to save the entire world. That's how dire it is right now. I'm going to try to make my case why we need to change and things like that. It's over, Johnny.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!
Some youngsters in Washington today expressed their feelings on this first Earth Day with new words to music we all know. We'll let their song be our good night. Last week at this time, as the Apollo 13 astronauts struggled back to Earth, a seldom used word became almost a conversational standby: consumables. We added up their oxygen and water supplies and measured the total against the number of hours left in the mission. And there was no doubt that unless they got back before their consumables vanished, so would they. Well, the ecologists tell us the spaceship Earth is in much the same fix, with not unlimited supplies of consumables, and a cutoff point before splashdown and maybe fade out for all of us.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Jim, you are an amazing activist. Every Friday, Jim has been doing his climate change protest in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I edited it, but his data and information is amazing that he presents. But Jim is getting tired, and Jim basically said, if this Earth Day and there's not the crowds in DC and in the cities that there were, it's over. It's over. Mm-hmm. Because no one is going to do anything. What do you think, Jen?
No, absolutely. I mean, it was so weird seeing that, 53 years ago that was made. And it was kind of sad. I mean, it was kind of poignant. It was hopeful at the time. They were kind of doing this new thing, and it's just, I don't know, Sandy, it was poignant for me to see that. Did you think so?
Yeah.
Also,
making it was poignant. I make these things and I cry over them.
Oh, yeah.
I do. All right. Well, let's get to the Verge article. And Jen, you want to take this one?
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely.
Right.
So, guys, we're going over to The Verge, Earth Day 2023, green or greenwashed. Earth Day falls on April 22nd every year, and I've come to dread it. More often than not, As an environmental reporter, it means shifting through a million announcements from companies shouting about how they're trying to save the planet. Alas, most of the stuff I see is just greenwashing. It's more about selling a product or an image of the company as sustainable and not about doing what's necessary to take on the environmental crisis of the world faces, whether that's climate change, plastic pollution, or e-waste. When it comes to getting ourselves out of these messes, business as usual just isn't going to cut it. Even if it's sprinkled with a little recycling or tree planting, two popular tactics for companies turn to do little for the environment, in some cases can cause even more harm. Here's The Verge's guide to the good, the bad, and the greenwashing this Earth Day. We were pleasantly surprised to see that Chipotle plans to give up some of its gas grills for all electric equipment. But the devil is always in the details. And plenty of companies make splashy announcements that don't really hold up under scrutiny. With Earth Day around the corner, it's that time of year again when companies start doing out sustainability pledges like candy. Unfortunately, some of those promises can be misleading. So, The Verge spoke with sustainability experts for tips on how to tell whether or not a climate pledge is legit. They also shared advice on what companies should aspire to if they want to have meaningful impact on climate change. It is tough to suss out stronger corporate climate pledges from weaker ones. Most companies aren't transparent enough on what climate commitments entail. And even if that's fine print, it's definitely not fun to sift through. So, tree planting is tricky. Embattled e scooter startup Bird is partnering with a nonprofit to plant one tree for every ride users take on April 22nd, Earth Day. Tree planting campaigns are popular gimmicks for brands looking to make themselves look
Where am I?
green. But it's controversial in the conservation world. Done poorly, the trees won't likely survive. And instead of restoring forests back to health, some of these schemes create tree plantations that can actually do damage to the local environment. The devil is in the details. Yes, Adidas, you are part of the problem. Thanks for saying so. A little brutal honesty is a breath of fresh air during the greenwashing bonanza that Earth Day has become. Synthetic fibers like polyester make up more than 90% of the microplastic polluting Arctic waters. And like Adidas points out, recycling doesn't solve the problem. But manufacturers can design clothes to last longer, shed less, and find more sustainable materials. So these are a couple of tweets. This is one from Adidas, and they say, by 2024, we will replace virgin polyester with recycled whenever possible, a major milestone in our history. But using recycled materials doesn't mean the problem is solved. We know we are part of the problem, and this personal best is just one of our ambition to become a bigger part of the solution. To do so, we need to change the materials we use, help keep products in play longer, and reduce our carbon footprint. All right. So just hang on to your old controller. This is another section here. If this still works, keeping it for longer is better for the environment than buying a new one, even if the new controller is made with recycled plastic, just like this one. Microsoft released this remix special edition Xbox controller ahead of Earth Day, boasting that it's made partly with reclaimed materials like old water jugs and parts of other controllers. The key word is partly. Only 1/3 of the controller is made with recycled material. That's because plastic quality deteriorates with each use. So it's really difficult to make device entirely or even mostly recycled plastic. It has to be reinforced with virgin material, which just means more plastic manufacturing and waste in the end. Another section, Apple wants to make its devices carbon neutral. But Earth Day adjacent climate pledges for individual products miss the big picture. A company might shrink the carbon footprint of a single device, for instance, but create more pollution overall by making more of those devices. The most important thing a company can do is tackle climate change. Tackle climate change is to slash all of its emissions from its supply chain to its products and operations. Apple says it has decreased its comprehensive carbon footprint by over 45% since 2015, even as the company's revenue has grown by over 68% during that same period. That's the kind of progress to look out for to see if a company is serious about climate change. Another one, Apple commits to using even more recycled cobalt in its devices. Apple has new plans to use more recycled materials in its devices. By 2025, the company plans to use 100% recycled cobalt in the batteries it designs. By the same day, it says magnets in its devices will contain entirely recycled rare earth elements, and circuit boards Apple designs will also be made with entirely recycled tin soldering and gold plating. The tech industry has been under scrutiny for years for its hunger for mined material, which inflicts harm on people and the environment. Apple and other companies have struggled with allegations of human rights violations along their supply chains for cobalt, in particular, called the blood diamond of batteries. Another section, the massive recycling warehouse fire is a stark reminder plastics are a pollution nightmare. A massive blaze at a plastic recycling factory in Richmond, Indiana is a terrifying reminder that plastics are a pollution nightmare, one that recycling can't fix. The fire started Tuesday night at a recycling and resale warehouse, which officials described as 6 buildings filled from floor to ceiling with plastic waste. We are looking to close 14 acres worth of plastic that's piled everywhere, Richmond Fire Department Chief Tim Brown said at a press conference on Wednesday. The entire complex is either burning or has burned. Boy.
I think that was the day that we had the ozone warning. It came from Indiana.
Probably.
All that shit came over here from Indiana. It's a 10-hour drive. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
flowed over and we had an ozone warning. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Mm-hmm.
All right, another item. Chipotle plans to ditch gas grills at 100 new locations. Chipotle is switching from gas to electric grills at many of its locations as part of a plan to design more environmentally sustainable restaurants. In 2024, Chipotle plans to open up at least 100 new locations that utilize all electric equipment, the company announced yesterday. The fast food chain has a goal of slashing its greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030, which is in line with what's needed globally to meet the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. Another item, recycled plastic won't solve tech's waste problem. Buying a gadget made with recycled plastic instead of brand new materials might sound like an environmentally friendly investment, but it does very little to cut down on the heaps of plastic pollution and electronic waste that are trashing the environment and ending up everywhere, including in our own bodies. Think of plastic pollution like an overflowing tub in your bathroom, says Josh Leposki, a professor at Memorial University of Newfoundland, who maps the international movement of electronic waste. If you walked into that, probably the first thing you would do would be turn off the tap, not grab a bucket and mop. If you think the bucket and mop as recycling, Leposki says. Turning off the tap equates to staunching the production of plastic goods. Trying to clean up a growing mess won't address the root of the problem. It doesn't mean don't use a bucket and mop, but that's not turning off the tap. And that is the end of that article. So there were several different items to take a look at, cutting through the corporate climate hype. So pretty interesting.
I thought so. I thought it was worth bringing in on this illustrious Earth Day. But now we are moving in the wrong direction, and now we're going to go through the UN report. And I'll take this one, and then you can go to the next one, or do you want to do that? How do you want to do?
Do you want to do all the charts and graphs, Sandy?
Is that one on this one?
No,
you do this one then. You take this one, and I'll just man the controls.
Okay.
I'm good at that.
Okay, guys, let's go. Cat going down. All right. We are moving in the wrong direction. New UN climate report highlights the scale of global climate change. So, guys, last year, records for sea level rise, glacier melt, and temperatures were broken. The World Meteorological Agency, WMO, warned in a new report. In the State of Global Climate 2022 report released ahead of Earth Day, the UN agency highlighted the concerning trend marking the progression of climate change. These included Europe shattering records for glacier melt in 2022 and sea ice in Antarctica dropping to the lowest level on record for February 2022. On top of that, the ocean is becoming warmer, with the amount of heat stored a new record high in 2022. Quote, we have stored more than 90% of the excess heat that we might have brought to the planet in the ocean. And we have again broken new records in ocean heat content for which, for example, giving more energy for tropical storms, cyclones, hurricanes, and typhoons. Patati Talas, Secretary General of the WMO, said at a press conference. The rate of global sea rise has also doubled since 1993, reaching a new record high as well. Quote, we have doubled the sea level rise in the past 20 years. We used to have a 2.3 millimeter per year sea level rise 20 years ago, and recently we have seen 4.6 millimeters per year increase. Wow, that's like almost doubled now. Jeez, it is doubled. Oh my God, it's doubled. It's doubled. Sea level rise has doubled in the last 20 years, which means in the next 20 years, it'll probably double again.
Pretty scary.
So that'll be up to like 9 millimeters per year. So from 2.3 millimeters per year to 9 millimeters per year. And then, well, you can see where it goes from there. And that increase is very much coming from the melting of major glaciers in Greenland and Antarctica.
We'll be doing that.
He added that global sea level rise could be particularly devastating as many of the biggest coastal cities and areas with highest population density around the world are in coastal areas. Low-lying states like the Netherlands and Bangladesh are also at risk. Quote, it should be and could be one of the motivators of more ambitious means to mitigate climate change. The last 8 years have been the warmest on record. Globally, the last 8 years have been the warmest on record since 1850, with temperatures at 1.1 degrees Celsius above the 1850 to 1900 average. P.S. It used to be 1750, but then we lost 100 years magically, and so now it's 1850.
Yeah, and that's a
And
big
there's like less
controversy.
less to worry about, right? So, it's all about whatever, you know.
Bullshit.
Just keep that in mind. Several temperature records across Europe were broken last year in individual countries like Sweden, the UK, Ireland, and Germany. So let's take a quick look at this global mean temperature graph. And so this is from 1850 with the magical 100 years before 1850, aka 1750, gone missing. But don't worry, that never really happened. So 1850 to now, you can see the trend. It's very easy to see. And if you look like from about 1980, I'd say we're off to the races. It was kind of back and forth, back and forth. And then from 1980, the last 43 years, we've been off to the races.
All the way up.
All the way up.
Mhm.
So, but despite the continued broken records and advance of climate change, there were record high concentrations in 2021 of the three main greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, the report added. Last month, the world's leading climate scientists wrote in the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) report that the climate bomb was ticking. Samantha Burgess, Deputy Director of the Copernicus Climate Change Service, has said that the level of greenhouse gases produced in Europe, for instance, will make it unlikely to reach the 2015 Paris Agreement goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a conclusion also reached in the IPCC report. We have broken records in three main greenhouse gas concentrations: CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide. And the annual increase of methane concentration last year was the highest we have recorded since 1980. And the scale of gases we've already emitted is likely to increase negative weather patterns until the 2060s, regardless of our success in climate mitigations, he added. The WMO report was released a day after a Copernicus record showed that Europe has experienced its warmest year ever recorded in 2022, suffering intense and prolonged heat waves and widespread drought. Europe has had its hottest summer on record and had a record loss of ice from glaciers and a record number of hours of sunshine. This extreme heat led to adverse effects on human health. Climate change comes with a humanitarian risk to society. While greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise and climate continues to change, populations worldwide continue to be gravely impacted by extreme weather and climate events. He added that the drought in East Africa, record breaking rainfall in Pakistan, and heat waves in China and Europe affected tens of millions of people, and cost billions of euros in damages. The socioeconomic impacts of climate change include problems with food security and population displacement, the WMO report said, posing multiple humanitarian risks to society. Heat waves in India and Pakistan caused a decline in crop yields that was then exacerbated due to the war in Ukraine, report added. A heavy monsoon season also led to the spread of waterborne diseases, according to the agency. Climate and weather related conditions have led to more internal displacement, too. The worst drought in 40 years in the Horn of Africa resulted in population displacement, as did heavy storms in Syria and record rainfall in Pakistan, where flooding affected more than 30 million people. High impact weather events have led to displacement worldwide. The WMO highlighted that some extreme weather events in 2022 happened consecutively, leaving little time for recovery between shocks and compounding repeated and protracted displacement. Humanity depends on nature. In a statement ahead of Earth Day, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that humanity depends on nature. From the air we breathe and the water we drink to the soil that grows our food, humanity's health depends on the health of Mother Earth, Guterres said. Yet, we seem hell-bent on destruction. The WMO Secretary General said, meanwhile, that UN agencies were aiming to make sure that all people have access to early warning services. Quote, at the moment, about 100 countries do not have adequate weather services in place. Achieving this ambitious task requires improvement of observation networks, investments in early warning, hydrological, and climate service capacities. And Tallis said the cost of green technology is dropping. Solar energy and electric vehicles are cheaper than ever before. He is confident that these climate friendly solutions will soon become mainstream. What happened during the last 10 years is that governments have realized that there is a problem called climate change and that they see it with their own eyes. Oh, good. They caught on.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Over the last 15 years, 32 countries have reduced their emissions while growing their economies. But we need to move quickly to mitigate the growing effects of climate change. We have a growing amount of means to be successful in climate mitigation. But we have to speed up our actions to be successful in reaching the Paris 1.5 to 2 degree targets. We are moving in the wrong direction.
And that gets a flush. Yep. The wrong direction gets a flush.
Yep. Wrong direction.
Yep. And, speaking of flushes,
Yes.
we wanted to talk a little bit about Starlink and, our the lovely ecological disaster that was that explosion, because what people don't think about is all of the pollution from that spreads over the towns in Texas that are near there. But we found a little funny, so we thought we would show it. Outdoor cats are using $500 Starlink satellite dishes as self-heating beds. These devices, developed by Elon Musk's SpaceX, have a warming feature to prevent snow buildup from disrupting the signals. So that's cute.
Wow.
Elon Musk, please send me my Starlink. I need reliable internet so I can watch the Braves on Apple TV.
Oh my God.
But actually, it's just, kind of crazy what happened. And let's see if there's anything. It's just it happened, and they're saying, Jennifer, what I like is how they say, oh, it was a successful test even though it blew up. I think it was four engines out of it blew up.
Yeah, it was sudden, what was it called? Sudden decomposition, or this three words linked together that basically mean the rocket exploded, right?
Yeah, exploded. And let's see, we have a climate emergency on Earth Day. I thought we would look at that really quick, and before we go on to our next article. Uh, and I also wanted to show you guys what was on Earth Day on Twitter, and a lot of it was basically just cleaning up and doing the pollution stuff that they were doing in 1970, which is very sweet, but it certainly is not enough. It really isn't. I mean, the kids, yes, the kids can have their cleanup days and they're very sweet, but for the most part, the adults need to do what Extinction Rebellion is doing. And I am interested in what Jim and Tanya will be reporting.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So this is, and people are saying, Happy Earth Day. It should be happy. We should be celebrating. We should be happy about our Earth, but it's quite stressful when you think about what's happening. So
it is.
And here's somebody happy Earth Day with quotes and slogans. The inspirational thought collection made by human and AI. So these were all kinds of quotes. Antarctica's melting, the world is drowning in plastic, and species are being brought to the edge of extinction. But there's quotes.
Oh my God.
So we're not going to go. Maybe we'll just look at one. Okay, first thing in the morning, you look after yourself, you brush your teeth, and you wash your face, don't you? Well, the second thing you must do is look after the planet. If any of you have any good quotes out there, this article, we'll put this in the show notes. Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. And if all humans disappeared If all humans disappeared today, the Earth would start improving tomorrow. If all ants disappeared today, the Earth would start dying tomorrow. David
there you go.
Suzuki. So there's some good stuff in there if you guys want to check it out. But we're going to move on because we are going to an hour. And the New York Times came out. We told you we're doing mainstream and not so mainstream media. We look at it all. And they came out with an article that said it's not just Willow. Oil and gas projects are back in a big way. Happy Earth Day. Alaska's controversial Willow project has drawn criticism, but a global analysis shows it's just one of hundreds of investments approved in the last year or so.
Yeah.
A refinery, this is Doha in Qatar, and they're going to unveil the world's biggest gas production facility in 2025.
Wow.
Can you talk? I mean, it's got to get another flush. There's like 2 flushes in this one. So I'm telling you, I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing, but when the Biden administration greenlighted the enormous $8 billion Willow project on Alaska's North Slope last month, many decried the move as a betrayal of the United States' pledge to move away from fossil fuels, right? Of course, we can't do that so fast anyway. But an analysis of global data shows that Willow represents a small fraction of hundreds of new oil and gas extraction projects approved in the past year across the world, including many more in the United States. So in coming months, dozens of projects are expected. So here in Qatar, and the top 30 countries are approved right here. And the data does not even include fracking.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So look at the millions of barrels and that's even with peak oil, which is like 2018. But Qatar, Saudi Arabia, look at Willow makes up just a third of what the U.S. is expected to extract. So all these countries, Russia's down there, but I mean all of them, even Israel and Egypt and Brazil. Look at Brazil up at the top. The
Oh
top three:
yeah.
Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, United Arab Emirates, Norway. And we know that Norway, green Norway, clean Norway, that's how they get their green and clean,
Yeah.
by extraction and selling. So the data reflect a surging a fossil fuel industry that has rebounded to pre-pandemic levels of growth. So even though the past few years have seen many countries institute policies that encourage renewable energy, demand for fossil fuels remains high. Russia's invasion of Ukraine drove up the oil prices, contributing to record profits for fossil fuel companies as governments scrambled to secure their energy supplies, sending prices soaring. It's a full bounce back, said Erlingson, a partner at Rystad Energy, who are just, going to continue to kick the can down the road to fix the planet, right? They provide the data. The future of this growth depends on policy. If the world wants to limit they want to limit warning. That was a slip, right? It will have to limit demand for oil and gas because the industry can deliver this kind of volume for many more decades. Much of the growth is taking place in traditional oil and gas producing nations like we saw. Okay. So in the United States, the fracking of shale rock beds for gas is resurgent, accounting for many times the level of investment and extraction as a project like Willow. So while gas causes fewer greenhouse gas emissions than oil does, the expansion of gas exploitation is incompatible with commitments that nations have made to limit emissions, according to the IPCC, the preeminent group. And I'm just going to go down Guyana, Brazil, Uganda. Although I did see Uganda, they have activism going on. They've got activists, and I found it on Twitter. I don't think I have it pulled up, but it was marvelous to see them. They are blocking the coal trucks. It was great. They are trying in Uganda. Now, Ghana's president made the argument clear to am I saying it right? Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris, the visiting U.S. Vice President last week. Fossil fuels were a resource which my government is seeking to use as the basis to transform its economy, he said, standing by her side. Their extraction would help this country wean itself from reliance on foreign aid. And look at there's a nice one in Norway. And Western countries have pooled loans to major coal-dependent countries like South Africa, Vietnam, Indonesia to help them develop renewable alternatives. But while coal development has been falling across the world, with notable exceptions of China and India, the economies of many countries, both rich and poor, remain reliant on fossil fuel. Coal is a particularly dirty fossil fuel, and burning it remains a major producer of the greenhouse gas emissions that are warming the world. The oil and gas industry's outlook was decidedly different as the pandemic's raging effects on the global economy were becoming clear in 2020. After many years of steady growth, companies revised growth downward and they postponed or canceled projects. But the cost of renewable energy sources like wind and solar were also rapidly declining to levels competitive with fossil fuels. Progressive climate policies in Europe and eventually the United States added greater uncertainty about fossils' role in everything but power grids to transportation. And I'm going to say we have not stopped the subsidies, New York Times. We're still giving them money. So I'm going down a little bit because I want to get to the next article. You guys could read the rest of this. Trillions of dollars are being invested in fossil infrastructure, said Michael Lazarus, a scientist and research director at Stockholm Environment Institute. Um, a lot of this build out is poised to come on board towards the end of the decade, when we really need to be on a declining path away. Oil and gas companies are essentially banking on demand remaining as high as it is now. So, even in the United States, where Biden's administration's historic climate legislation from last year is unleashing hundreds of billions of dollars into renewable industry energy, the production of both oil and gas are forecast to grow. It's not like the U.S. is one of many actors. It has become the world's largest oil and gas producer, Mr. Lazarus said. All signs are that Washington is intent on remaining in that position. Is that showing climate leadership? There is a fundamental contradiction that has to be pointed out. Now, let me say that in this, that, you know, we can't get off fossil fuels like cold turkey. We just can't. People will die, millions. I mean, it's just not possible. But to ramp it all up is the definition of insanity, Jennifer, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
You guys doing all right out there? Because we got one more, and Jennifer's going to bring up the rear, and she's going to do this one more from Resilience. And here we go.
Okay, guys, here we have a new article from Resilience, another offering from our tech overlords, a climate change solution without sacrifice. My expectations are never disappointed when I read news each day and find out that the solution to the problems created by our modern technology are to be found in more technology. We do not need to restructure our society, reduce our consumption, moderate our desires, or change our habits. I think we need magical thinking sounds.
Oh,
Technology.
definitely.
Oh,
There
yes.
we go. Woo! Yes, absolutely. You know what? We also got that because that's what it's leading to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Technology will solve our problems without us having to make any substantial change in our way of life. The breathless coverage of a university-based startup company that will draw carbon dioxide out of the ocean, thereby making room for more carbon dioxide from the air to be absorbed, may convince you that we can all sit back and let our tech overlords solve climate change. But if you read it to the very bottom of the article, you will find out that there is one important sticking point. It's an energy intensive process, and energy must come from somewhere. The company says its process will produce hydrogen as a byproduct, which will cover about half the energy needs. What about the other half? Well, I suppose they could just use renewable sources, but that would seriously limit the scale of this technology because the lack of available renewable energy in many locales and its low market penetration to date. According to Our World in Energy site, using data from BP's statistical review of world energy, isn't that a conflict of interest? Excuse me?
Well, maybe a little tiny bit.
BP's Beyond Petroleum? No, I don't think so. No.
Beyond Petroleum.
That's British
British
Petroleum. They
Petroleum,
just remarketed themselves. They're just pieces of shit.
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go.
Anyway, less than 3% of the world's energy comes from wind. Only 1.65% is solar. Only 0.7% is biofuels. Even if you add nuclear, which is non-renewable, nuclear energy only makes up about 4.3% of the world energy. And This is not to mention other demands on these sources of energy. There are more difficulties. It turns out that hydrogen, when released in its gaseous form into the atmosphere, makes climate change worse.
Wonderful.
And hydrogen is notorious for leaking from just about anything you can put it in, partly because it's a gas and mostly because it's the smallest molecule in the universe, which makes it easier for hydrogen to get around other molecules trying to block it. Here's the explanation for why hydrogen aggregates global warming. Hydrogen
Aggravates.
it
Aggravates.
aggravates
Yeah.
global warming. Hydrogen has an indirect global warming effect by extending the lifetime of other GHGs, greenhouse gases. Certain GHGs, such as methane, ozone, and water vapor, are gradually neutralized by reacting with hydroxide radicals, OH, in the atmosphere. When H2, or hydrogen, reaches the atmosphere, however, the H2 molecule reacts with OH instead, depleting atmospheric OH levels and delaying neutralization of the GHGs, which effectively increases the lifetime of these GHGs. How potent is hydrogen in its indirect effects? The report cited above says 100 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Another source says 11 times. So, the transition to a hydrogen economy would also have to be coupled with serious measures to prevent hydrogen leaks, which are hard to prevent. In fact, most applications involving liquid hydrogen, which is the form in which it is normally stored and transported, is expected at about 1% of it will boil off and escape each day. Proponents say even with leaks, burning hydrogen will be far better than burning carbon fuels. But that's assuming you make hydrogen fuel without burning carbon fuels. Remember, there are no hydrogen reservoirs. If we want to separate it from water molecules through hydrolysis, it takes a considerable amount of energy, more than we get back by burning hydrogen. That means that under current technology, hydrogen is not an energy source, only an energy carrier. Another common way to obtain hydrogen is to strip it from natural gas, which of course is not sustainable or a climate-friendly way to make it. I do not doubt the sincerity of people behind extracting carbon dioxide from seawater. The oceans are believed to have absorbed about 1/3 of all human-made carbon dioxide emitted to date. Theoretically, it seems to make sense to extract that carbon dioxide in order to make room for more atmospheric carbon dioxide to dissolve into the oceans. But of course, what makes even more sense is to stop emitting carbon dioxide into the air. But human society continues to increase carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Our tech overlords, whether cynical or sincere, do not want anything to interrupt their ability to profit from the introduction of more and more technology. I have previously defined this group as follows. The tech overlords are a grab bag technology companies, technology scientists and inventors, and technology investors and journalists who have bewitched the modern world through inventions that speed up our daily lives without necessarily making them better. The tech overlords purport to know how to feed the world, end poverty, empower the individual, solve climate change, colonize other planets. And the key to these feats is, of course, more and newer technology. But, as I said in the same piece, grand techno utopian visions of the future are just tricks to make us think that humans know more than they do, and that there are experts who know so much more than the rest of us that we should just leave everything to them.
Okay.
I do not think we can wait for our tech overlords to solve our problems. In fact, I believe their kind of thinking only perpetuates them. Wow. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we had a good array of articles, and the
Yeah,
chat is certainly
absolutely.
chatty. And I'm going to see what there were a few questions. I'm going to put up Nina first. Nina had said, our shopping habits matter. We need to hold corporations accountable year round using information technology to spread the message. Thank you, Nina. Yes, I like that. And let's see. Okay, hello, obsolete optics. Oops, I lost it. Shit. Oh, I can't believe I clicked on the wrong one. Well, he was saying something about licking Elon's boots.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's, Gary's saying, and Gary says all of our analysis, even here in ECH, centers on so-called white, so-called American culture. We are missing the whole story. Well, of course we're missing the whole story. We try to bring different voices in, and it's not always easy. We have a really wonderful interview from many years ago with Dr. Gabuji and Antonio. I'll have to pull that one up. Maybe I'll play it over again or invite him back. We have, understanding of that. Trust me, we do understand that. I'm sorry, obsolete optics. Okay. If you have not already discussed it, I'd like to ask what they think about the nuclear power situation in Germany. Would you like me to take that one? Because I've been looking at
Yeah,
this.
you
All right.
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nuclear power. I've watched videos where the nuclear power people are telling us that it is, like James Hansen is a proponent, it is the way to get us off fossil fuels while the more renewables, which are not really renewable, it's because the technology has to be rebuilt. Maybe the power's renewable, but the technology isn't. And so that's the argument, and that there's so many more newer things coming down the pipe that people shouldn't discount nuclear. And of course, then there's the going back to, well, the one big thing could happen, Chernobyl or a Fukushima. And then on the other side, there's the statistics of, well, really, how much and how many people are being hurt by nuclear. I mean, it's really a balancing act with that. So in Germany, they're getting off it just like New York got off Indian Point, but guess what they're using? New York is now using more natural gas because they closed Indian Point. And Germany is the same thing. So while we don't have, a fabulous answer, we are not scientists. It's a conundrum, and I'm wondering if that's not going to happen anyway. That nuclear power is just going to happen anyway because the situation's going to become untenable eventually even with all these gas projects. Because once we're already seeing catastrophic weather events.
Oh, yeah. More every day, right?
Every day.
That's absolutely.
So I hope, Hank, that helped you. I do. Let's see what else. I do hope that helped you. It wasn't, a definitive answer because we're not, well, at the moment, I need more information before I can even make that decision on whether or not I say yay or totally nay, because it's a conundrum for me. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. Let's see. More energy is not helpful, no matter what the source book hermit says. No, that's business as usual. You're right. And we have, we're not going to be, it's business as usual to continue like that so that people can either attain our style of living in the West, or like, or we can continue. What say you, Jen?
Oh, absolutely. It's business as usual. That one article that said it's like magic. There's no sacrifice, there's no adjustment. Just let the tech overlords do it. They'll take care of you. We've got this. It's magical thinking.
Volt revolt. Nuclear has some advantages, but without enough water, they can't keep the plant cool. France is almost all nuclear. Last summer, rivers in France and Germany nearly dried up. We have
Right.
you guys are very sophisticated out there. You understand. So a lot of times, oh, you're welcome. I don't know if we answered it, but we addressed it. Answering answering a question sometimes it's hard to answer, but we can address it. So, all right, guys. Well, how is Tanya? Sounds like naked and afraid is the next option.
Good one,
Yeah,
Tanya.
that was a good one, Tanya. We like that one. Oh my God. Well, how you guys doing? Yeah, business as usual might work with 200 million people limit, and once the planet recovers, well, that could be coming. And everybody says, Jennifer, like people will say, well, overpopulation is a big problem, but are you willing to give up your life? My life's going to go anyway. I mean, life ends, but I will be one of those probably. I'll probably be a climate refugee. Who knows? Minnetonka prepping, and people say to just shut down the nuclear plants. It takes 40 years to decommission a power plant. That's true too.
True.
Steve Angelico, the extinction pyramid is pinking, and Professor Mac is at the top with a banner that reads, I told you so. Hi, Patty P. Oh, she's in New York State at a funeral. I'm sorry, Patty. I'm so sorry. Okay, we have another one. What is your opinion of NASA and similar agencies and the Earth science they are doing there? Are they helping the Earth, or are they the overlords? Oh, boy. Hank Scorpio, a new person with us. You are challenging our brains. Jennifer, do you want to take that one on?
Actually, I'm going to give that one over to you, Sandy.
Well, I'm going to say that, I'm neutral. I mean, NASA, see, I don't really think that we should, I think from what I understand, space exploration is going to bring us, all right, data and information from the space stations looking at the Earth, calculations. Every time they go up, they bring back more information. I don't think it's the Elon Musk go to Mars kind of thing. I definitely think that they belong sort of partly to the overlords. But
there's another thing to consider, and that a big branch of NASA is the Earth sciences and the data that they provide about the Earth. NASA has some of the best Earth data around. They've got all kinds of satellites, they've got technologies, they can measure sea ice thickness, they have deep pockets. And they're not just a space agency. It sounds like they're just a space agency, but there's a lot more to NASA than space,
Yeah, that's true. And thank you. As a millennial, all of you older people who care about our rights need to step up in a real way, not just an online way. We need you present. Well, if you weren't here and you didn't see what Jim McHenry's doing, he's going to DC. And there are a lot of people, and I have done my marching. I'm too disabled to go to DC and march. I mean, I have done a lot of activism and a lot of letter writing and a lot of campaigns. I can't. But there are a lot of people that are, and we love you and care about you. We do. Scott, this might be a good one to last. The sacred sperm is an
Oh,
endangered species.
remember that one
Oh,
in Monty Python? Every sperm is sacred. Every
yeah.
sperm is good.
I've played that, I think, on the
Oh
show.
my God,
Yeah,
that
I've
is
played it
so
on the
funny.
show. Well, I think we've done pretty good here for Earth Day. I hope we've addressed anything that was left hanging. Hank, I hope you come back. I like your little flowers. Thank you. Um, I hope you come back. And also you, Erisima Trifilium. Um, I wish I could be there more, but as a millennial, I'm looking at my list. Yeah, there's a list.
Mhm.
There's a list. I have one of you, that I had 34 years ago. I
Mhm.
would imagine she's a millennial. So, all right. Well, thank you, Retro Boomer and Minnesconsin and everybody. Hank, Patty. I hope everything is okay. Retro Boomer, I'm really glad you came back. Giant Curve, thank you, everyone. Don't forget, we still have our little uh, fundraiser going, and I do have the interview I'm going to play with Simon Michaud, who is a geologist. And this, oh my gosh, I I had to take a few deep breaths during this interview. It's very interesting. It's not quite the same as where you've seen him on other channels, what he talks about with me. I'm going to play that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to hold it till Tuesday. I was thinking about doing it Sunday, but let's see. We'll see how it goes. Jen,
Yeah,
where would
well,
you like to go?
happy Earth Day. This is the 53rd Earth Day. And what has happened in 53 years? Not as much as we would have hoped. And in fact, 100 years seem to just disappear. During that 53 years, we used to talk about the Industrial Revolution starting in 1750. Now, all of a sudden, it starts in 1850.
Yeah.
So that was pretty magical. It's poignant. Sandy, hats off to you for that really good video that you put together that incorporated the first Earth Day footage, and it's sad, it's poignant, and the only thing we have to do is to keep doing what we're doing because we cannot look away. I think that's what everybody who watches this channel has in common. They cannot look away. They do not get into some sort of inconvenient truth thinking that, we look at the problem, we see what's happening, and it takes a lot of power just to kind of hold that vision. But, I feel that we're an electronic tribe and we have a shared
There
vision.
you go.
So at least we're not alone in looking at this approach of the
Interesting.
oncoming train.
Interesting use of the word. Simon used the same word. So
What?
the tribe.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and talked a lot about division. But you guys will see. All right, guys. Thank you. We are extremely happy that you came, and I feel better. I wasn't feeling better. I wasn't feeling good today, but it's the way it goes. All right. Peace out. Jennifer, I love you.
Love you
I
too.
love
Love you guys.
I love Jennifer.
Hmm. Thank you. I love you too.
Whoops. Shut them all off and good night, everyone.